Yeah, we put.
Probably take just a moment for people to be able to get back. So let's. Christie, you ready to go? Okay.
There's one person with iPhone, that was all.
Elena's not back yet.
We need to get.
No, she is.
Christie, are we looking good now?
I think so. I don't see Chris Hyatt. Chad.
Okay, we'll give them some time to get on that, maybe in the iPhone.
Okay. So anyway, before we start the city council meeting, I want to add Chris Hyatt to the agenda. By consensus, all I need is everyone saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. He is our water modeler. And I've asked him to give us an update on where we are with the model.
Okay.
It's gonna pour water on the table to show you how flat it is.
It depends on how much static pressure is on the table.
Yeah, okay. February 5th, 2025 City Council meeting is now called to order. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest?
No.
Thank you. Approval of minutes. Can I have an approval of the regular meeting minutes for January 8th?
I move to approve the regular meeting minutes from the city council meeting Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. I'll second.
Make a
Okay, is there
motion to
any
approve the
discussion?
minutes, with the exception of a typo on page 7, line 4, administrator, not administrative.
Page 7, line 4.
Page 7.
Yes, got it.
Okay. Any other corrections? Hearing none, let's go with, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, let's go to the work session on January 8th. A motion, please.
Give you a motion to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council from Wednesday, January 8th, 2025.
Second,
Second.
any discussion, any corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. All right, I'll take a motion for the work session, January 29th.
I'll give you a motion to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council from Wednesday, January 29th, 2025.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Good. Here we go. We have no planning commission minutes, so it's up to the mayor to say something, and I'm gonna go. I've got a meeting tomorrow at the elementary school for If I Were Mayor contest. Oh man, this is gonna be so much fun this year. Because the guy who won, I believe, is running for class president this year. And he's gonna show me around. Cool. That's what I was told, but you know, I don't go to school, so I don't know. Anyway, I went to last week, the city day at the Capitol, and met with Senator Weber and Representative Javati. And I met with several other agencies, including the Oregon Water Resource Board. had some very productive conversations with everybody. And I also went to Depot Bay and saw the first demonstration of the hydrogen fuel cell generator that they have in Oregon. Because I guess last year they lost power for quite some time and they had quite a bit of trouble with medical conditions that needed on electricity and they didn't have it.
Oh.
So it was very interesting, and when they turned it on, it was so quiet. I mean, you couldn't even hear the fans that circulated air. I mean, it's an amazing little machine. It comes in a little 8x10 trailer. But it's really something. Okay,
What's
so
the powers?
hydrogen. You need a source of fresh water and then you have a, what do they call that, anyway, it just electrolysis, it puts a power through the water, the hydrogen comes off. And they just bottle it. And the only waste that the generator makes is water. So it takes the hydrogen, changes it chemically, makes electricity, and all it does is dribble water out.
Did they tell you how much it cost?
No, are you kidding? I know they got a $100,000 grant for a small little,
People, it is that big.
no, it's 1,600 people. So it's very interesting what they're doing. They're trying to get all these individual generators situated throughout town and tie them in so they can cut the grid when it goes down. They can cut it off, and then each one of those generators, because of the software that Sky has developed, they all talk to each other and they generate as much power as it needs be for the whole town, is what their ultimate goal is. And that way that it's just really very interesting if you get a chance to go down and talk to them about it. It was an eye-opening thing. Okay, so that's mine. Council reports, Preston.
Well, I also went to League of Oregon Cities, but I wasn't able to get into the Capitol because I carried a pocket knife. And I refused to give it up, get rid of it. So anyway, I talked to the Water Resource Board about our future well field out here, and they said that their records that the application had been withdrawn because they needed some more information. Then I talked to the state fire marshal guys. And then I was very interested in finding out through the General Assembly conversations about the liability for cities and what the state legislature is going to do about it. Like, for instance, people walking down our paths or using the benches out there, if they feel fall, you know, what sort of liability that you're hard with. Yeah. And anyway, it was very, very productive session for me.
Great. Sure.
Okay, I attended the Seaside Airport meeting last week. There's nothing new to report about their situation. They did talk about cutting a few smaller trees down at the north end of the runway. I don't think that what they're talking about cutting even qualifies for our definition of a tree. I think it's actually smaller than that. So I told them they really didn't need a permit for things that aren't trees.
Isn't that in the city of Seaside?
No, the north end's in Gerhardt. It's split.
The asphalt plants and.
It goes around the asphalt plant and it gets about 1/3 of the runway.
Is that a wetland up there?
Yes.
Yes,
Area?
there's a wetland.
So does that play into that?
No.
And I'm asking because there was a question about whether they intend to build a fence. And I know that they're in their
Yeah.
minutes, they talked about, can you tell us?
Yeah, they
about
haven't
that?
pursued that, that would have to be taken up with FEMA slightly. I'm pretty sure Garrett said something to this, to the effect that fences, if they don't block water flow, are not problematic with FEMA. Pretty sure he made that statement, but don't quote me.
But they're not like breaking ground, they don't even have the money to do it right now.
So Preston, to answer your question, half the airport is in Gerhardt and it's zoned RA, which is rural agricultural. The part that's in Seaside is zoned airport, so there's even two zoning situations there. Let's see what else. Chad and I continue to work on a write-up link type of situation for prospective business owners who would like to come and open a business in Gerhardt. We're trying to put some useful information in there. I would ask if anybody has any contributions to make to that, we'd be most appreciative. And then I just attended over the internet the Small Cities Update last Friday. So that's Friday.
It's not this Friday.
That's another one.
So the meeting, the update last year was the LOC legislative update, right?
Not last year.
Or, sorry, last Friday.
Yeah, so
They're doing their Friday
Okay, I'm sorry.
updates again.
All right.
yeah, it's hard to keep them all straight.
I know.
Yes, it is. All right.
ABCs.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Paulina next.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I just want to take a moment to remember and recognize Cannon Beach Mayor, former Mayor Sam Stidell. He passed away in January after a very short illness. He was a friend and a mentor. We were both mayors at the same time. We were part of the 5 mayors group together. Got to know him then. Additionally, I met with Chad twice, mostly working just on getting me up to speed on projects the city is involved with. I attended the Clatsop County Housing Task Force, learned about market-based housing, which is workforce housing for what I would call an area such as Gerhardt, where if you were to build, you could actually, if you put together a land trust or some other way of making land available, the area mean income would be up to 120%, and that's about $80,000 annual income. That's kind of the workforce housing that if we want to try and build out some, that would probably be what would be appropriate for Gerhardt. But it was very interesting to learn about that. I also have come in and looked at the check detail before they've gone out. So they've been signed and have all of their information, background information on the checks as they're going out. Did that twice in the month. And last night I attended the CERT meeting. There are plans for countywide training over the summer. Emphasis is really on safety, caring for self, family, and neighbors. And they did talk quite a bit about the ICS training, particularly ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800 are 4 really good classes to start on. They are hoping to do training over the summer, including a countywide training for certs. And he went over chapter 2 of the book. So he's starting that kind of a review mechanism. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Paulina. Dan?
Okay, so start off with, on a high note, shout out to Police Chief Josh Gregory. So many people don't know this, you probably, I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense, but you don't really think about it every day, but police officers aren't normally on everybody's Christmas card list. If you pull somebody over and give them a ticket, you're not gonna be their friend. It takes a special kind of talent to meet somebody at probably the worst moment in their life and come away as, you know, with a positive outcome. And I noticed that this last month that somebody on one of our local social media sites made a positive post about their interaction with Chief. And then everybody piled on and said basically the same thing, that they love him and that they are so glad that he came along. So thank you for being a good ambassador for our community.
Thank you very much.
So I attended the PSB planning meeting and then the public meeting, and then I went to Salem with the mayor and spoke with Senator Weber and Representative Javati. Things that we discussed were our water rights application, our water maintenance needs, making them aware of the needs that we have and the support that we need from them. We would hope to have with them, and they said that they understood that and asked us to follow up with them. So hopefully there'll be more on that in the future. Also spoke about our public safety building and the lack of state resources devoted to addressing the problems on the beaches during our holiday periods. They understood what we had to share with them there. Again, they are very interested in supporting our public safety building project and would want to talk more when we get closer to a shovel-ready project. Also, we spoke about revising the transient lodging tax distribution in a way that doesn't work against Gerhardt's comprehensive plan, recreational immunity, and they both felt confident that that would be something that would be taken care of. The FEMA buyout, they, like everybody else we spoke to, really they don't have any solid answers on that. So they just said, yeah, I will continue exploring it, but we don't really know what to say, what's gonna happen with it. Also spoke with the executive director of Class of Economic Development Resources about attending future meetings on Gerhardt's representative. Gonna be in the next, coming up, I have the public safety building public meeting. I'm speaking in a civics class at Seaside High School, and I am intending to go next week to the county commission and the Gerhardt Rural Fire Protection District meetings to share updates about our public safety building, and also to share my perspective on why we need support for this project and how it's integral to the overall health of our emergency services in Clatsop County. And last but not least, as you are probably all aware by now, or I hope you are, post office, we do have a new contractor, Robert, the gentleman that's been behind the counter for a while, is going to continue to provide us with service. So we should see very little change there, if any at all.
Thank you, Dana. Chief?
All right, good evening. Thank you again. Before I get going, just want to take a moment and ask everybody to remember Sergeant Jason Gooding. Today was the 9th anniversary of his fatal shooting. Jason meant a lot to the local law enforcement community. One of the worst shifts I've ever had in my career. So just take a moment when you have time and remember his sacrifice to everyone here. Stats, I apologize, they were so behind last month. We will have them soon, being the 5th. Jeremiah's on tonight, he's supposed to be doing his. And we should be able to wrap that up pretty soon. We'll have the January stats for you soon. Speaking of Mariz, he participated in an event at Encore Dance Studio last week and got to answer questions for young homeschool children who meet there once a week or a month or so and kind of get together as communities as they're not in school. He was helped by Seaside Police Department as well as Gerhardt Fire. The kids got to see, emergency vehicles and ask fun questions and spend some time with law enforcement and firefighters. So kudos to him for going with that. I'm very appreciative of it. The weather. I was assuming we were going to have crash after crash after crash. We have not. It's been pretty good. Let's take major stuff. It's quiet. Never said the keyword. But yes, it's been good. People have been behaving, so I'm very happy about that. We'll see if it continues, but nothing crazy to report on the weather as far as law enforcement goes. I'm looking at starting a reserve program. I've talked about our lack of officers and how we can be creative and try to make some things happen so we can have some patrol, extra patrol I have a guy that's in mind right now, who has come to me and said he would like to join, or if there was a program. So we're looking at putting things together. I'm working with DPSST right now to find out just what avenues I need to take and looking at putting together a policy so that we can implement this and get some extra bodies on the road. There will be some challenges, but we're looking to get it going. So, yes.
So you just as a full reserve or as like a citizen on patrol, able to do, you know, stuff that a civilian could do?
So this is actually someone who is 3 years out of law enforcement and is still certified as a police officer in the state. So he would be able to, looking at a minimum of 20 hours a month.
Did
Is
you want to leave
required.
the building? You didn't tackle it?
I tried to tie his legs up and his ankles and shaft him down, but it was hard to grab. Yeah, no, he's very interested. We just got to work through a few cases to see if we can continue his certification, might be reserved. But I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to make this happen.
So will we be paying him? Or?
This would not be a paid position whatsoever. So it's strictly volunteer, just as firefighters have volunteers, it would be a volunteer police officer. Someone that did the job for a long time and kind of misses it. It sticks to us.
We would have a few associated costs, like he would have to be covered by our
Sure.
workers' comp and, you know, equipment and things like that. We'd have to.
Be very minimal, a lot of gain. So very few cons, a lot of pros. And that's all I got.
Go ahead.
Just curious, we continue to have a problem with this, as I'm sure you're very well aware, with the speeders, particularly on Gerhart Loop Road Lane, whatever it is. Is that overwhelming for you guys to patrol that? I mean, where are you guys at with?
It's not overwhelming, it's a time thing. We've got a lot of projects going on during the day. I'm getting calls to, quite a bit of paperwork to do. I know I need to get out there and patrol a little bit more.
Yeah, good.
Well, I know.
I'm not saying that.
No, I know, but I agree. And that 25 is hard for people to stick to. I got a lot of drivers and while it looks like they're going super fast, a lot of them are doing 31, 32, 33. And that's where they kind of feel comfortable going through there and I'll stop them and warn them. I don't like writing a ticket for 6 over.
Right.
And that's just not but I'd rather educate them. So we have been making stops out there. There have been traffic stops made, especially the Cottage, Gerhart Lane area,
Yeah.
that straight stretch through there. And we've got a great little hiding spot that we can sit in and get an array of numbers from speed,
So, I mean, would it make things a little more tenable to increase the speed limit to 30 that road?
personally, and law enforcement view that I would have, I don't think that would change very much. I mean, if it was 30 to 25, you're not gonna increase the likelihood of accidents from that, in my opinion. I'm not a scientist though, so I can't do all that, but I can tell you it probably wouldn't change anything if it was 30 versus 25. Now, when you get up to McMiniman's area, I think 25 is appropriate. I think you got me on topic of speed limits. There are some neighborhoods, specifically the reserve, that I believe should be 20, not 25. There's a lot of curves in that neighborhood. People walk through there a lot. There's no sidewalk. There's little children that live there. I've been approached by people before asking if they could lower the speed limit. So I didn't know if that was a planning commission question or a council question. It was on my to-do list. But it is something to think about. I mean, there's areas I think the speed limit should change. I think Gerhart Lane from Highway 101 to the curve at the golf course could be 30. Be a big deal.
So do we want to discuss that?
If you put it 30, they're gonna do 35.
And this is true too.
You know, you do 25. 25 mile an hour, they're doing 30 on F Street.
I
You
don't,
know,
I don't want Evan's husband going after him.
And I'll be honest with you, on that stretch, I'm looking for egregious speeds, right? I'm looking for people that are getting up to 38, 39, 40. You get to 40, you're sure getting stopped, right? That's what we're looking for anyway. You're absolutely right, Mayor. They're gonna go up 5 over. If you put it at 45, they'll do 50. You know, it's people pushing.
Chief, I believe we brought that down from 35 to 25.
No, it's 45.
Was it 45?
Yeah.
And that was within the last 10 years.
Yeah, it was 45 when we took it down to 20.
25 feels slow. I mean, I know, you know, you're driving through there, 25 feels slow on that because it's straight. Anytime you have a straight stretch and there's not a lot on the side of the road, it's very wide berth, no houses directly on top of it. And then to top it off, you get into a golf course where it's just, you know, open land, so.
Did the judge ever raise the issue of speed tracking?
I think the problem is for that road, a lot of people do walk along that road. A lot of people walk their dogs, myself included, along that road, and
That's why we love your heart. It's a very walking town. A lot of people walk around.
And
I
it's
love
gonna
it.
get worse when ODOT does their changes, and people from the other side of the 101 are able to walk over here a little bit more easily.
As long as you don't do what they did in certified to put speed to.
But if you would like to talk about speeds anytime, please let me know, and I would love to sit down and go over areas of concern to me. And
yeah, I was just trying to think of, do we need to change the speed limit to make things a little bit less onerous for you guys?
yeah, you know, we're gonna get out there when we can get out there either way, so whether it's 25 or 30. Just got another question, Dan, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Chief,
Thank you, sir. I don't think we had any other special events besides what Chief Gregory talked about at Encore. We participated in the same thing, kids run around all the fire trucks and have fun with that there, so that was really good for the crew to get out and do that. I do have your last month breakdown for you. We had 53 calls for January, 26 in the city and 24 in the district. We sent out 83 times. Fire in Seaside, technical rescue out in Hamlet area, which was a Saddle Mountain rescue. And then a building fire in Astoria, and as a reminder, even though it says Astoria, we didn't go to Astoria, we went to Warrenton to cover them. It's like the ripple effect. We move up because then they go and then back and forth from there. We did not receive any aid, last month. With that, I'll talk about aid a little bit more in a second. So we ended January 2024 on 65 calls. So at the end of January this year, we were 12 incidents behind last year. But to date, so in 5 days, we've caught up and now we're only 5 calls behind with that. And that isn't because of the weather. We only had one car crash because of the weather. I think that was the first time the weather. That was an accident just at the Colby Lake Esconders for there. So we're busy with that. With all the projects and everything we got going on, I was finally able to get the last 2 years of the end of year reports for you guys. So you have 2023 and 2024 end of year reports. There's lots of different graphs and breakdowns in there. I broke down the call types. And I can go any further. I can go into further detail and how many times we went to, we call it code 141 or 150. I put them in general categories, easy for you to see there. And even though currently we send out aid more than we receive it, mutual aid works both ways. It's not just incidents. We've had multiple people from other fire agencies come and help us fix things, or we give them a call and they come and help us teach a class or help us with something there that we just couldn't do on our own. So the mutual aid doesn't cover just incidents on there. It covers daily operations and everything with that. Something I did want to highlight. From the report, one of the last pages on each one, it shows our mobilization revenue in there. From 2023, after you take out the cost of per diem and fuel and payroll and everything, in 2023, we made more than $32,000 from our mobilizations. That bottom number, the 77,857, that includes payroll and stuff. As I said, the state reimburses the city for my time, my salary while I'm gone, so that does not come out of the budget line there while I'm gone. And then we do maintenance on the vehicles because it's a little hard on vehicles and stuff there. But after all that's taken out, we still made in 2023 over $30,000 for mobilizations. And then last year in 2024, if you look at that report, after you take out payroll and everything from that, we made over $50,000 in 2024. Once you include payroll and everything in there, that was slightly more. We got reimbursed from the state $164,000 this year for mobilizations and stuff. And I go into much more detail in the narratives there of what else the state's done for us. And they gave us, granted us that tender that we have, that apparatus that was aging out from there. And they give us a summer staffing grant every year and stuff for that. So there's lots of other information in the ME report. It's also on our website, under the ME reports tab. And I've had a lot of people, not a lot, I've had 2 people get a hold of me saying they had a hard time clicking on burn permits. On our website. It's in the same place it's always been. It hasn't changed. If you click on burning, we purposely put it after the release, so that you have to read all the ordinances and the rules and what's okay and not okay. And there's 2 things in the bottom. One says in the fire district and one says in the city limits. Obviously, you click in the city limits, and then there's the city ordinance and stuff information there, and then there's a blue link that says click for fill out a permit form. So it's all online, just like it has been for the last 4 years or so on there. Justine did help me. We changed some colors a little bit so it can stand out a little bit better. Right where you can click on the forms, able to see from there on that. But if there's no other questions, that's all I have for you guys. Yes.
Just curious, what constitutes a technical rescue?
So that one, a technical rescue, anything beyond the normal, it's not a medical call, it's not a car crash. That technical rescue was a saddle mountain rescue. So if it's a search and rescue, or we have to use our rope rescue gear, something more technical than just an easy help you out with that. Our water rescues are technical rescues. Anytime we use our rope gear, anytime we're climbing Tillamook saddle mountain, those are technical rescues.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Master of money.
So noteworthy in revenues, the city's quarterly taxes are due in January for our local transient room tax and our marijuana tax. Both came in at expected levels. They were right where we expected and no real growth or real loss in them, which is good. Noteworthy in expenditures, there was a void in 10-10-50. Which is election expenses, and the amount was $436.39 because the county had sent out invoices to all taxing districts that were informational only. But that wasn't clear, and I was able to void the check before I sent it out. But last month it showed as an expenditure because I wrote it on the 31st and I voided it out on February or January 1st. So then it showed on the December report and it doesn't show now. So I wanted to make sure that I just clarified that that check had been voided. And so that 436 would have been how much the city of Deerheart would have had to pay had we had something on the ballot that was chargeable. So the check was voided before it was sent to the Postal Service, so it never went to the county. There was a blade, post hole digger, and auger purchase in the water account, so 3069 tools and light equipment. Public Works needed those particular small implements that fit, I believe, to our John Deere tractor. There was a payment to date wireless in $72.99 for the completion of the police vehicle mount project that you guys had approved. So that project is complete. We have received one new application for a budget committee and have talked to some of the expiring ones, and they're interested in being considered for renewal, and that'll come to the council in March. So people still have time to apply if they're interested. Public Works is disposing of a surplus property through a sealed bid process. It will be released tomorrow on the blog and in the newspaper. It's for a 2002 Ford F-150. There is a minimum bid of $2,000. And a bid agreement form is required. So as of tomorrow, those can be picked up. And we will open up the bids, sealed bids on February 25th. The vehicle is parked over here at City Hall. If anybody is interested, they're welcome to come and look at it. As a reminder, this kind of goes along with your guys's council responsibility. If a governing body has a total expenditures of 1 million or more in a fiscal year, each governing body member is required to take a training on the Oregon Public Law by it's required at least once during each term of their office. So during one time during your office, you must take Oregon's public meeting law, and the training must be provided or approved by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And there is an ORS 192-700 that requires that training to be approved by an authorized person. And they do have those approved trainers, which at this point, the only one besides them is the Oregon School Boards Association. And you can take them online. They offer them a lot. They have a great website with lots of different training opportunities, and you can take them electronically. It's out at oregon.gov, OGEC, on their trainings page. So you might want to go out there and take a look if you're interested. And according to the website, it is the responsibility of the individual governing body members to keep records of the public meeting laws training that they've attended, including the date and who provided the training. So you're welcome to go out there and take a look and at least plan, if you haven't taken the Oregon public meeting law, to go ahead and.
That was the class that was just canceled yesterday, right?
No, that's ethics. Yes, sir.
That was ethics yesterday? Oh, I thought it was the public meeting. I had it down in my phone as the public meeting.
Well, if you got it, then I take your word over my memory.
Well, no, yeah.
But they're gonna reschedule that.
Yeah, and this one, they have lots of them out there that you can take, but
Okay,
that's all I have.
thanks a lot. I'll be back in tomorrow to bother you to get all that.
So we don't have to take that class.
You have to take it at one time in the term, in the life of your term.
Yeah, that's a class that was canceled yesterday, and they say that they'll reschedule it up here at Plattsburgh, so.
In the life of your term, is that a 4-year term? Or is it the term that you're serving?
The elected term. So if you were appointed and you only have 3 months left, you would need to take it within that, in theory, and within that 3 months. But if you were
If you're
voted
appointed?
you still need to take it. So it depends on,
Thank you.
the length of.
That's
the
really
term.
clear.
You were elected, you gotta take it.
And it did say each time you were elected, you need to take it.
So if
So,
you take it twice, you'll be safe.
Yeah, but if I've already taken it twice, but I still gotta take it 2 more times to catch up. Thank you very much. Peter?
Yeah, so last month you had asked me for some more information about system development charges. What cities utilize them, what that looks like around the state, and for cities that are Gerhardt size. The ability for cities to charge system development charges, legislature enacted those laws in 1991. Currently, well, not currently, because the most recent data is from 2023. About 76% of cities collect SDCs. The most common SDC is a traffic SDC. Other common ones include water and park. The methodology that can be utilized by cities in order to determine current and future needs for new construction, and my focus was on residential construction, not on commercial or industrial, because residential is really what we're seeing. The methodology can be utilized is pretty broad. There's no fixed criteria. The cities that have the larger the city, the higher the probability they charge system development charges. And there's some correlation also between the size of the city and the amount, though that's not completely true. I was shocked to find that the city of North Plains in Washington County charges a SDC of $47,269 per unit. to compare that to cities around us, Seaside has one of about 9,900. Manzanita is at 11,392, and Cannon Beach is at 8,428. The cities that seem to have the highest SDCs are the cities that are either experience rapid growth, or the metro area cities. Tiger charges 47,550. Banks charges 32,664. There's cities that charge as little as 4,000 or 5,000. The legislature has recently taken a look at whether the SDCs create barriers to affordability or to construction, and the evidence on it is mixed. There have been some suggestions, but there's no law that the SDCs will be based on the number of bedrooms or bathrooms. Very few jurisdictions do that. Some jurisdictions do charge them based off the type of unit. So a studio apartment would pay less than a single family detached house. Another element that cities will look at, this is particularly true of water SDCs, is the size of the meter. So the larger the meter, the higher the SDC, and that's just because the overall impact on the system. And that's particularly true with multifamily properties that have sprinkler systems that are pressurized. So those are fire suppression systems. So if you have a bunch of those in your city, then you're going to have to up the amount of available water you have to run those sort of systems, and as well as meet your regular water needs. Is the reasoning for that. Also, people with pools have water SDCs, and although they probably only fill their pool once a year or something, that there are cities that really charge a high SDC for those sort of meters. I spoke to a couple of city managers that I've worked with and a couple of city attorneys. I've gone through this process myself. Most of the large planning consulting firms are able to perform this methodology. One of the one of the things that might make sense to ask is, because 3J is currently doing the buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis for the county, to see whether it would be possible to piggyback onto that. As far as some of our SDCs, they're already gathering a bunch of that data, and that could help. That could help with the calculation perhaps at a lower amount. We would need to talk to them about that and see how much data they already have, because if we were to do that, it would be a special form of contracting. If we want to go out to bid for public contracting, our most recent master plans relate to parks. So that would be a pretty easy one. And then water, we're looking for those additional water rights. So that would be another one where we would likely be able to get some data pretty easily. Again, I was on vacation last week, and then as soon as I got back, I got sick. Fortunately, not COVID. So I've been able to gather all the information, but I haven't had time to really talk through everything with Chad. As far as the Portland state population numbers, which I continue to go back and forth with Portland State, it occurred to me because one of the issues that we have is what's called the vacancy rate. So traditionally, if you look at like the 2010 census, about 50% of the homes in Gerhart were people's primary residence or domicile, and about 50% of them were not. Comparing that to the 2020 census, that number had the number that were the domiciles, which is people's intended home, had gone up to 50%, or excuse me, had gone up to 55%, 45% being vacation houses. It occurred to me that given that the census was in July of 2020 and that we have voter registration for elections from May 20, so immediately before the census, then November, and then 22, and then 24 as well, that one of the ways that we could make a case for our population size was to look at the whether we had growth in those, because those are people over the age of 18. Motor voter, when people change their residence, that generally updates. So I looked at those numbers, and we have definitely had an increase in Gerhart electors during that period. Pretty steady. There have been some blips throughout. So if you compare those numbers to then the population like under the age of 18, which those wouldn't be captured in that data. So if we look at how many registered voters we had in May of 20 and how that compares to our population, we had 1,496 registered voters. The census estimate was 1,733, so we're able to establish our kind of percentage on that basis. If you compare that to 2024, we have 1,665 registered voters, so people who intend to be domiciled here. Using that as a percentage and then comparing it to those residents that would be under the age of 18, assuming that the population spread from 520 probably is going to be similar. Based on that, there is a substantial undercount. So I think that's we've also looked at water data. We've looked at fire calls. Both Chief and Chief Andy have been great at getting us information. And I think using all of those, we're able to make a case that we have had very steady population growth, and the adjustment that they tried to do in 2023, our voter registration shows the opposite of that. So we didn't lose population. We've gained population quite steadily over that 4-year period. The other thing that has been mentioned in the past was that I was going to have to, we thought, perhaps prosecute a case. And we think we have that settled. I don't want to jinx us by saying it's fully settled, but we have parameters that I think work for all parties, and kind of an understanding of everyone going forward about how to, to avoid problems going forward. So that's always a good outcome when we can get to a settlement and that, that works for people. Other things to keep in mind, I've been keeping an eye on the legislature. Some of you have already mentioned the city liability for the use of our trails, et cetera. That is something that I have been very worried about, that we maintain our sovereign immunity. So to all of you that have been advocating to the legislators, thank you so much for doing that. It's going to be a critically important issue. The other thing that I would mention is that this isn't Gerhart specific, this is all the jurisdictions I represent. I have been getting really inconsistent information from state agencies as far as what cities need to do, what information they need to provide. A recent example had been that DLCD is requiring local wetland inventories in instances where they hadn't previously. My understanding though is that the number of staffers in the Department of State Lands that are able to process those has decreased dramatically. So the turnaround time is significant. So I was on a conference call with DLCD staff and DSL trying to come up with something that would work. And it just doesn't feel like clear communication is happening. And it doesn't feel like people are necessarily giving us clear and objective criteria that we can follow and rely upon. So I only mention that because as some of you interface either with legislators or with state agencies, just to caution you that sometimes we're receiving inconsistent information, or it seems to be a lack of communication within the department or between agencies, which is not ideal, but something that we're dealing with. So that's
We
all.
may have heard something similar to that from the legislators that we spoke with.
Yeah, I mean, nobody that I've mentioned to this has acted surprised.
Yeah.
And even this morning, I was looking at a number that was, I won't get into exactly what it was, but it was an election related number. And so I asked to clarify, we asked to clarify, had a question on some whether acronyms could be used and how to count those. And we're told, well, that word limit's just kind of a best practice. And so I was like, well, when you say not to exceed in your materials and then give a number, like the way that I would interpret that is you can't, that's not like a try to get into, you know, this range. It's that you're not allowed to exceed it. And so I think that it creates a challenging environment because we're all striving to really just follow the laws and to be so that I can advise all of you on legal risk. And it's challenging. It can be challenging if you're getting different information from different people, and then there's a general reluctance to put anything in writing. So hopefully that will work itself out, but something that is challenging.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, is there anything else for Peter? Chad?
Mayor, Council, keep this quick. We've been through a lot of meetings as far as staff goes over the last month. And things are going well, but it's been keeping us very busy. And I wanted to thank the police department and fire department in particular for all the time that they're spending working on the public safety building. Those meetings are often and they're detailed. There's a lot of information that we're providing, but I'm very pleased with both their performance of our architect and our management group that's helping us through this. They're doing a very good job. That said, February 11th is the public safety community meeting number 3. We have gotten more and more participation in our town hall meetings, community meetings that we've been doing. And I got a feeling this one's going to be well attended. The architects and engineers are bringing some site designs that they are proposing for the public to take a look at. They're going to garner some information from the public about which ones they like and don't like, and get some feedback there. And then we will be bringing those to the council as well and start heading down a path of trying to get down to 2 different designs for that building so that we can begin costing those out and then look at with the end game of getting to the November 2025 election period of time with that question for our residents to answer. But so far, that's going very well. We did get the geotech information back. I shared that report with some of you. It's difficult to read and really interpret what it's saying. But basically, in short form, it's saying there are poor soils underneath the current fire station, and that there will need to be some sort of amendment done to make sure that we have the adequate type critical infrastructure foundation. And the foundation will be an expensive part of this building. So we're working through that, and we'll have more information at the meeting on the 11th, 6 p.m. to 7:30. So I'm looking forward to that. We had the work session with the council that I think went well. It was informative for the council to kind of learn some of the things that are happening with that project. Chief Como has developed a website that we now have on the cityofgearhart.com website that has frequently asked questions. It has the recordings from the old meetings. It has a lot of information about geotech process. And that was the first iteration of it. Today, we discussed how we can improve that. So we're going to be making some improvements to it, but it is live and available for the community and the counselors to keep an eye on that project. And it's working really well. So thank you, Chief and Christy, for assisting with that. We are working on a little minor remodel for the police department. This has to do with safety and evidence retention. And so that's moving forward. We're just finishing off with waiting for one more quote, and then we'll be putting a couple walls in, some doors, and a little bit of security in there.
Is that based on the recommendation from CIS?
Based on
From our
recommendation from
attorneys that we had
CIS,
to do that?
yes. We've gotten some information requests for some folks, in regards to tsunami and earthquake information. We've been able to fulfill those. And then yesterday and the day before, we had the surveyors out on the buildings, surveyors and underground utility detectors, looking at all the underground underneath this, the city hall and the fire station and police station, and then getting that information to our architects. So you've seen some work around this area. That's what that was. Geotech. Public Works has been very busy. They are working on the projects with the sodium hypochlorite generator. That's the machine that makes the chlorine. That install is going well, although it's very detailed and entailed. They have been busily putting that system together, replumbing. They've had electricians in. So far, the project's going all right. There's a few fitment issues, but we're working around those. Also in Public Works, I wanted to thank the folks that live across the highway today. We had to install a new fire hydrant for the development of the new storage facility, and a fire department connection that was added to that. In doing so, we had to shut the water down in those parts of the neighborhood. When we shut the water off, we noticed we had another valve issue. It looks like it's not really affecting anybody. Josh would know, his house is one of them. We're worried about low pressures. But we have the new parts on the way. They'll be here tomorrow, and then Friday they're going to be reinstalling that. So there's maybe going to be a little turning on and turning off in that area, but we think we have a handle on it. We're doing a good job. Code enforcement's been very busy. There's been a lot of little construction violations and things that we've been taking care of. Nothing that has gone up to the need for a violation ticket. We've been able to work everything out with the contractors. And most of this is lot line issues, maybe encroaching on the public right of way a little bit. We have had some nuisance issues on a few houses in town that are taking a lot of our time, and we're working through that with the police department, code enforcement, planning, and we'll soon be working with our attorney a little bit on those. Peter was talking about the R1 zone infraction case. We are working with legal counsel, and we think we have some resolutions to get through that. Garbage storage violations have been an issue. We've taken care of a few of those. and working with staff on the Mansell septic tree issue. We've been investigating that quite a bit, working with the county, and I think that finally getting to the end of that, and we'll be able to move forward here soon. Tree issues, the ordinance for the tree ordinance is working. And the tree cutters have been receptive. And they've been coming in to get permits, ask questions. Right now, we're probably spending more time than we would normally on the ordinance because we're educating ourselves. We're educating the public. So far, it's going pretty well. I'm not going to report on anything in particular, but I think that we're going to want to make a few adjustments here in the future to it, just some minor things. But let's give it some time and let those work themselves out. But otherwise, I'm pretty impressed with the way that the tree cutters and arborists are responding to it. So that's great. I think I'm into 6 or 7 of those permits out there, and just because of the extra time and that we probably I've spent about 10 hours on trees this month, trying to get things arranged and doing that. I'm hoping that'll become a little bit less moving forward, although we are getting into tree cutting, if you will. Public safety building, we talked about that. We finished our emergency power grant upgrade project of the water treatment facility. So we had backup power for our reservoir and our telemetry system, and some power up there for our emergency supplies as well. And we got all of the water caucus information as into the state in regards to our investments, future investments for the water caucus. And so that was a bigger project, but I think it's going to be very helpful to us. They did not promise any grants would be coming our way, but I have already received some information on potential grants for the type of projects that we have. And then we've also put in a lot of information with ODOT. We have an ODOT transparency, accountability, and performance report that was due, and we submitted that to talk about our roadways, how they're holding up, and what some of the future projects may be for that as well. That's all that I have to report for now. Smith.
Speaking of ODOT, what's happening with redoing the highway?
So we were awarded the 4th grant in the state to begin that project of the traffic diet and the new intersection up here that we modernize that intersection, and in regards to the lighting, the computer, and the ADA access. Then we were kicked out of that grant system because the top 3 grants, the expenses were much higher than what they anticipated with the increase in expenses that we've all been underneath. So we are no longer in consideration for that. The next opportunity for that, I believe, is in 2 years for the traffic diet portion. But the Oregon Department of Transportation, to avoid a lawsuit, has to redo our intersection at Pacific Way 101 because of ADA issues. And I believe that planning is underway now. The conversations have been had with property owners that are next to that intersection. And I believe that construction will start at the end of 25 or the beginning of 26 for the new lighting situation.
About changing the lanes from.
That's the traffic diet issue, and it will probably be a couple of years until we're able to get back into there. It depends on how the legislature goes. ODOT is pretty short on money right now, so I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
Did the city of Astoria take a different course when they reduced their lanes from 2 to 1, where they've reduced those lanes? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about, and I'm not sure. But I can ask around on that. But the project was in the above $1 million. So I'm not sure if Astoria funded any of that themselves. We would be relying on grants.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chap. Okay. Gerhard, Volunteer Fire Department.
Good evening, my name is Rob Brooks. I'm the Vice President of the Volunteer Fire Department Association. And tonight I need to ask your permission if we could have our firefighter ball fundraiser on Memorial Day weekend. It's the same one we've been doing for years. And it will basically be the same thing we've done for years, just need your permission to move forward with it.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I've got a question. I mean, this is February. You guys don't have the volunteer in May.
Right,
Or are we dealing with this in February?
because you're busy people and we want to be ahead of the game.
It takes that long to organize a ball.
We have to get the tent, we have to get all the permissions from everybody, so it takes a while. And being ahead of the game is a lot better than asking at the last minute.
Any other questions or concerns?
No.
Motion?
Is this under the liquor license application?
No, motion to approve the request to hold the ball.
I move that we give permission to hold the fire.
There it is. And I second it.
Okay, now's the time for discussion, but since you've already discussed, let's have a aye.
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 Sorry, Pauline, I forgot.
I said aye.
I got you. I got it. Okay,
Thanks, sir. Thank you for your
you
time.
got it. Chase, thank you very much. You'll stay?
Sir.
Okay,
Before you guys, just wanted to introduce one of our volunteers to you folks. This is Rob Brooks. He is now lieutenant with us on the fire department. Rob came to us with a lot of experience and he has been a wonderful addition to the fire department. And not only that, but he's brought his wife. His wife also is a volunteer with us, Corey. They were both fantastic. They lived around here for about how many years now?
About 3 months.
Yeah, and immediately came in and started volunteering and it definitely increased our capabilities, so. Thank you very much.
well, thank you,
Thank you for
Rob.
your time.
You keep bringing your family around.
Thank you. Good work.
All right, anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhard.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. I do not have a sign-in sheet
No.
and it's nothing, so that's perfect. All right. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on something that isn't on the agenda? Thank you very much. All right, so written public comment acknowledgement. I have, and I believe this will be called late correspondence, but we'll go to, in our packet, I have a letter from Anthony Pope, who is the county council, and that is to Deanna Mansell about the Weeping Willow. That's the only correspondence, and late correspondence is a message from Deanna Mansell about the Weeping Willow. So we've gotten 2. There you are. Now, new business. Requests to speak during new business is limited to 3 minutes and your comments are strictly on.
Mr. Mayor, we do have one more visitor in Chris.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's Chris Hyatt. Are you there? Yep.
I am.
We have our water modeler here to give us a little report and slideshow.
Hey, Chris, when you introduce yourself, would you mind telling us what you do?
Yeah. I'm a geologist and I specialize in hydrogeology, which is groundwater. And I've been working with the city since the water system was thought of back in 2003 or so. It was actually the guy I walked into the office of Dennis McNally and said, "Hey, here you have a water project coming up." And I've been working in some capacity ever since for the city.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, you got a slideshow or something you wanna?
Yeah, I have, I prepared some graphs that I'm not sure how to show you.
So
How to
it
do
would
it.
be share screen on Zoom. And then you would click on the screen that you have your slides. And Christie, is the share screen button near the bottom?
Yes, it's on the very bottom and it's got a green box with an arrow
Oh,
pointing.
yeah. Okay,
Okay, so you
got
click
it.
that. You suggest you have nothing funny on your other computer, just in case something.
Yeah.
There we go. We got the screen share. And now you choose which screen you would like to show. And we have that. And if you could hit the F11 key on your computer.
What button is that? Epileptic.
F11. Oh, you might be on.
Oh, F11.
Yeah, that would be screen maximized so that we can see it. Then if not, no worries, we can deal with this.
And you see that
That's a little better.
that is maximized.
Okay, yeah, we can see it.
So I'm trying to keep it short and concise because I could talk about this project for hours. And there are a lot of different tangents that you can go off on. But as you know, the city has a water right, and that water right dictates how much water the city can pump from your well field every month. And the graph on the right says 2023 water demand. You'll see the orange line is how much the water right allows you to withdraw every month. And you'll see that there's a big dip in the summer months. We have plenty of water in the winter, wet months, but very little water in the summer months. Then the blue line underneath that is showing how much water the city actually consumes, or demand. And you see that the quite a bit in the summertime when population is at its peak, visitors, and also obviously water usage increases because of irrigation, watering lawns, gardens, so forth. So in this, what you'll see is when we have a deficit in the summer months where the two lines cross over here, this little area where we don't have water, it's a deficit, and we get that make up for that deficit by importing water from Warrenton. And so Warrenton is, you have a mutual agreement with them for, I think it lasts 2 more years. And they have said, we'll give you X amount of water per year, but no more. And as of recently, they've said, Warrenton, I guess, is going through some growth spurts of their own. And said, you may want to go shopping elsewhere for your water. And so we are applying for another water right to make up for that deficit that we see between July and October. The new water rate would only apply for those 3 or 4 months because I consider plenty of water, more than enough in the winter months, January through about June. Plenty of water, and then again November, December. So it's only this area under the blue curve that we're looking to augment. And in doing so, we are looking at not just now how much water we need, but also into the future. And so we do a projection out about 20 years to 2024, and we can see if you look at the two graphs here that the area under that blue curve and the orange curve increases quite a bit. We almost double the demand. So you're probably asking, why do we have this big dip, this U in the water right? And that has to do with surface water. The Water Resource Department, because we are so close to the Pacific Ocean and Neocoxie Creek to the east, there's concern that our pumping, our well field will interfere and either create saltwater intrusion, which is not very likely, but we monitor it anyway. And then for Neocoxie Creek, they're worrying of decreasing the flow in the creek and thus impacting fish and wildlife and so forth. So they reduce our flow, our permitted flow during those 3 or 4 months when water levels are lowest, and lo and behold, that's when we need the water the most. So we are also a part of our water rate. We are required to monitor a number of parameters. You've probably seen the sentinel wells that are on the dune there. There are 3 out in the sand dunes. And those are sentinel wells designed to uh, detect saltwater intrusion. So if we see certain parameters increase, we know you pump too much too hard, and that salt water is starting to flow eastward towards the water well. But there are ways they're giving us a heads up, so we know for before it's the well field. Again, the potential of that happening is very, very low. And we also monitor, we have wells from about Marion Street east towards Neocoxie, and then we have another well on the other side of Neocoxie to the east, and they are monitoring potential impacts or changes in the flow to Neocoxie Creek. On top of that, if that was enough, we also have a stream gauge in Neocoxie, which is measuring not just levels and flow, but temperature, salinity, dissolved oxygen, all these other parameters. And we've been monitoring those conditions in the permit since 2012, 13. And we've created a huge database over those 10, 12 years. The wells are capturing a measurement every 2 hours. So 6 wells every 2 hours, they're measuring temperature, pressure, chloride, total dissolved solids, salinity, a bunch of other things. And then the probe in Neocoxie Creek is capturing data every 15 minutes. So there's a tremendous amount of data we're collecting every year, and that data is summarized in an annual report that we send to the state, showing how we are complying with the various conditions that are in the permit. So in order to justify our new water rate, the state essentially said, you're gonna have to show us that you're not gonna have any impacts to either the Pacific saltwater intrusion, which is they're not really worried about, but more to Neocostic Creek. And so we are putting together a model, a groundwater model, rather sophisticated model called ModFlow, in where we can plug in different pumping scenarios and run it for many years or a couple of days, or it's very flexible as how we run it. And we'll do a scenario for like a drought year. We'll do a scenario for what if we pump less water? What if we pump more water? And how does that affect? Primarily, again, I'll come back to impacts to Neocostic Creek. So we did a projection out of 2024 based on population and past water usage. You can see that bottom screen that the demand goes up quite a bit. But we want to get that water rate up to match that. And you can see on the table to the left in red, that shows how much water we are deficit for each or surplus each month. So you can see in 2045, we get out where, in July, in August, we're 25 million gallons a deficit. And so we run these numbers through our model and we see how they impact Neocostic Creek. And the good news is I just had a meeting yesterday with the other geologists I'm working this with. The good news is we're not really seeing any impact to Neocosky in most any scenario we run. And I can't quite verify this yet, and I shouldn't speak too soon, but one of the surprising things we're seeing, that as we pump harder, pump more water, we actually see an increased flow in Neocostic Creek, which seems counterintuitive. If we were to have any impact, you would think that we would lower the levels at Neocosky. But because all of the residents there are on septic systems, we are pumping from the well field, west, and that water is being used in the east portion. And so homes in proximity to Neocoxy are actually, because of the septic systems, they are recharging the aquifer and actually adding water to Neocoxy, which was very surprising for us to kind of have this revelation. And the other thing is Neocoxy, as you probably know, is tidally influenced. So any impacts we might have would be replaced in the next incoming tide. So we have to account for that. So the model gets really complicated. But I'll end by saying that, and you probably have questions, and by saying we're wrapping up the model. We have a few more runs, do a few more scenarios we need to work out. But all this is to give some justification to the state that, one, we need the water, obviously, and two, that our request for an increase in the quantity is not going to have, has not had impact over the last 10, 12 years, and will that have an impact over the next 20 years if under an increased allocation. So it's good news.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. That was very informative. Are you saying that instead of getting the restrictions taken off our water right, we're going to go for a new water right that is going to supersede the old water right?
Yeah, it's a regulatory, if government can ever make things more difficult, they will. And so the way the rules, the regulations in Oregon water law are set up is essentially, yeah, you need a new water rate. So we would get a new water rate for July through September, October every year, which would say you can pump what you're already allocated plus 0.5 or 1.5 CFS during those months. So you'd have two, it kind of overlaps. Like I say, it does make sense. Intuitively, we just say write an addendum and change the numbers on the original water rate. But like I say, WRD never does things a simple way.
Right. Thank you very much for the information, Chris. That was really quite informative.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about how the whole system works, we do an annual report every year showing the compliance with the water right and in all the numbers of how much water is pumped, what the concentrations of various constituents are. It's all in a report that we submitted to the state, and Chad has a copy of that, and as does Mark McFadden. So kind of outlines some of the history too of how the project has changed over the years. So
great, thank you.
You bet.
Does
My
anyone have
pleasure.
any questions?
Chris, if we obtain the new water right, will that make us completely independent from Warrenton?
That's the idea, yes. In the future, I see everyone has a problem. There's a lot of growth going on, increased population. The fact that Warrenton is saying, we can't even supply our own people. So you're going to have to get off our system. Seaside have zero problems, scarcity of water. So in the future, I think I foresee what I call regional water authority, where Seaside, Gearhart, and some of the areas in between there kind of pool together their resources and do more sharing and kind of interconnect that whole pipeline system that runs, up and down that section of the coast.
Right.
Chris,
Mhm.
is there any value in considering having more storage of water so that we can draw off more during the plentiful months and have it in reserve?
Yes, that is something we consider when we first, started off on this. We, did kind of feasibility study, and we looked at things like, is there a water right nearby that we could transfer? A water right that wasn't being used. You could transfer water rights with the basic. We couldn't find any. Could we do aquifer storage and recovery where that's a concept where you actually take water and inject it into the aquifer during the winter months, and then extract that water out in the summer months. The problem is that the water that you inject has to be potable water. So you would have to treat that water in your treatment plant, then pump it into the ground and pull it back out in the summer. And that would be, and there are a lot of other water quality restrictions that would be very expensive. You can look at desalination as a last resort, but desalination is, it sounds easy enough, but desalination is has a very low return on investment. You would need a new water treatment system using different technology. Then I think the return on you pump, I believe it's 200 gallons to produce 1 gallon of potable water. And then on top of that, you have all the salt and all the, stuff, the crud that's in the ocean. You pull it out of the water. You're going to have to manage that as a waste. You can't just dump it back in the ocean or something. And thirdly, we don't have any surface water bodies, to withdraw from. Typically, in any scenarios, you would look at a nearby river or creek and take water from that. But here we're already dealing with fears of impacts to Ninkasi, which is the nearest, surface water body. So this, new water right is really the cheapest and fastest remedy.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else with a question? Thank you very much, Chris.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. We're going to move on. That was very interesting. It's a very technical, but it's a very interesting modeling procedure that they use. Okay, new business. And that is the request for 3-minute comment. Anyone wishing to comment, please raise your hand. You'll be limited to 3 minutes to the topic at hand. I see none. The first one is going to be fire department request for funds. Any comments from the audience? Chief, would you like to run through this, or do you want Chad to do that?
I can do it.
Okay, then you do it.
Thank you. So I'm requesting funds to replace one of our 2 really outdated staff vehicles that we have. In the report I gave you, I stated how it's a standard for most departments and NFPA states, replacing staff vehicles every 6 to 8 years. You can extend that a few more years if you cycle them down to a status such as weekend duty officer, or like what Seaside uses their lifeguard rigs or whatever. Both of the vehicles that will need to replace, one now and one in the future, are well past that 10-year time frame with that. The one that is really in desperate need, we have done many repairs to it, as many as I think we can. And it would still hold water in the floorboards that are not drilled holes in the floorboards to drain the water out. We've replaced drip rails in there. We've rebuilt the drip rails. We resealed them, bought new seals. That's just the water intrusion leaks in there. It has, as well as all the other issues it has. And the division chief has invited anybody that would like to take a ride for her in her nice staff vehicle. If they have questions, they should be more than happy to do so with that. In there. So I'm asking for $85,000, which is the price of the vehicle and all the upfitting, which is on the lower end of the standard of what it costs most places to do it. what we are looking to do. The city of Astoria just did one for $100,000. Seaside did one, doing the wiring and stuff themselves, which we will do. It's the same as we've done with our other apparatus we have, which saves about $20,000 to $25,000 when you do wiring on your own. It costs about $25,000 just to take it someplace to have them install the lights and the radios and stuff for you in there. So 85, up to 85 is what the request is. I wanted to remind, last time I asked for funds out of this account was when one of our apparatuses needed fixed, so we had a trailer to Portland. With that, I asked for $10,000 and I came in under budget, 3,000 under. And that's the goal with this. The goal is to spend all of that. It's to do what needs to be done with the vehicle from there. So if there's any other questions or anything we have with that, I can say, I did ask originally, after consulting with the mayor or second one, there was some other thoughts with that. We could do the one that's been really desperate need now. And so we looked at what the second one would need to have costs done, so we did take it up and it has a current list of $2,000 of repairs that need to be done to it in there. So if we were able to do that, maybe push it off a little bit, what have you, with that line there. What happens in the future? Who knows what that question will be.
Okay. So if we want to go to discussion, I need a motion.
I'll give you a motion to approve the chief's request for reserve funds up to $85,000 to purchase and upfit a new department vehicle with vendor selection at the department's discretion.
Second. Okay, now we're in discussion. I believe, and I really do, we've got 2 vehicles that are on their deathbeds. We've got the money in the account. We should go and get 2 vehicles because next year it's going to be $30,000 more. And we'll be looking at over $100,000 for one of these vehicles instead of getting it at 85 right now.
Not only that, I would, 2,000 is what you're estimating, but who knows how much more it's going to be, and 2 new vehicles would then be under warranty and, presumably the repairs would be much less. So we could save a little bit of money there.
And the other thing is maybe we can get on a little bit sooner replacement. I can understand trying to get your last licks out of a vehicle, but if you're drilling holes in the floorboard,
Yeah.
I mean, and she's sucking.
Do what I can to make it last.
When your foot goes through to stop the car.
Yes, sir.
But that's, I would like you to withdraw your motion. I'd like to make a motion
Sure.
that we allocate funds of $170,000 up to $170,000 for 2 new vehicles for the fire department. So these guys are driving safe vehicles.
I'll give you a second.
Okay. We can go back into discussion.
Is it appropriate to ask Justine how she feels about what would be left in the reserve fund?
Well, 170 from 400
Right.
I think that question would be more for the chief is, what your future expenses are, what he thinks. Justine knows how much money we have in there, but she does not have a capital expenditure plan that the chief does. So he'd probably be the one to answer that.
So that would leave, if we were to go to 170, that would leave a little over 300,000 left in that reserve fund. There is some talks, who knows what happens, in November, going for a new station, if we don't, what will we need to do to our current one, to make sure it's safe as can be. We are doing some stuff now, to mitigate some of those issues after reports we got. The next vehicle we'll need replaced, would be, our second due engine that's held at the substation. With that, I have some thoughts in there, and I can't remember if I put that in the report or not. Some different pathways of funding for that apparatus when it comes time for that. It is held at the substation. My first track, there's about 2 different tracks of grants that could come through to replace that apparatus. I finally got all the documentation and everything submitted so we can apply for grants through the district, and that doing it that way, it puts us in a different category when we apply. When we apply for grants to the city, it's a combination. They separate grants from 3 different categories: full career, combination, volunteer. When we apply through them through the city, obviously, you have to apply for a combination departments, that's what we have. I got everything submitted to the district, so we can apply through grants to the district, and how they look at that, it's 100% volunteer work. So that's a different category, and then it's better chances because it's an instant regional grant, because it's with the district and the city. When you combine, so you have better chances of receiving the grant.
Where's that money coming from?
FEMA, AFG grants that we get. We use it to get our SCBA bottles. The last 2 times we've gotten it, we got the SCBA compressor off that. We got the Unimon off of that grant stuff, so we've gotten multiple things off that in the past. Another pathway may be a co-thing, since it's out of the substation, up in the district board, whether they take the full cost of that, and they deal with that. Or a split cost between the city and district be there, and then the final option would be the same way we got the engine we have here would be, it's a government lease. Is that what's called, but what we did for 29-21?
No, we actually purchased it using a loan from a
A
bank.
loan from a bank. From there, so that's what that would be, we'll go from that, that'd be the next thing that comes forward in there. Other than that, I don't know, what comes up in the future, none of us really knows with that. I think that would leave a substantial amount, 300 in there, but you never really know what life can throw at you, with what we're doing for that.
Well, we have to depend on your experience, so
Yeah.
if that doesn't, I guess what I'm asking is, you know, does it make you at all concerned or nervous that that's all you would have left?
It makes me concerned for how much money one costs, and that's why I put it off so long. I was really hoping prices would level out and stuff, and they haven't. What scares me is what happens if a vehicle doesn't work and if her feet go through the floorboard of what's there. What I like to have that account would be $1 billion in there all the time, because who knows what would happen. So I am encouraged with what we bring in over mobilizations in the last 2 years. That's one reason I showed you. We brought in $83,000 after payroll and vehicle maintenance and everything from there, just from 2 years of mobilization funds in there. Who knows what the future will hold.
Well, I would also point out that you mentioned in here that the funds from selling the vehicles, the old bill,
That's
would go back in there, so it wouldn't be the full 170. Do you have any idea how much those vehicles are gonna be worth? Did you?
No.
Okay, but it would be, that's
Yeah,
gonna be
pretty
reviewed, that,
Yeah.
it's gonna go back in the account.
Maybe about 5,000, maybe a little bit more.
So that'll go back in the account.
That's
So they're not even worth driving, that's how good they are.
Yeah, we've got a Ford F-150 out here that, you could bid on tomorrow.
Or,
I'm kidding. No, I'm
it's a
just-
great first vehicle for my kid.
Yeah. No, I'm sold, I already know. I was horrified when I saw how old those vehicles are.
So I guess my only other concern, I tend to be more of a saver than a spender just by nature. So I guess my only other concern would be, we don't know what's gonna happen, depending on getting monies from FEMA may or may not work out in the future. And that's looking potentially a little bleak, maybe. So, I don't know, I'm just, you know what I'm saying, I mean, it's slow.
If you see what he's written about 2961 has the potential to throw a rod soon. And that's the vehicle he's keeping. You don't want them driving down the highway and throw a rod and not getting to their place.
Right.
And it's just, and for me, I say, that's why we have what we have. But if it takes money to make money, and this is basically, you're making something safe, and that's saving money.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and saving that much money, buying them both now is, you know, it's great, and it's a huge consideration. So that potential to throw a rod, is that not repairable, or?
So when we recently got it evaluated, we took it up to Astoria Ford. They gave me something different than a previous mechanic. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I took it to a mechanic before, they said the knocking tick was lifter valves and rod that could be thrown, because it was made better by putting some different oil in there. Astoria Ford says it's just head bolts on there that can be replaced. Is the ticking sound that another mechanic thought maybe a rod. Another one of the repairs was for a 4-wheel drive hub, that is out, I can't remember what the third one on there, holding that 2,000. But
So here's the thing, so you're asking us for one vehicle, you'd like to see 2 vehicles be purchased. I mean, if you really felt like if we were down to the nth degree, wouldn't you have asked for 2 vehicles or?
I didn't want to ask for 2 and get denied, is what I told the mayor in office, is I don't want to come out swinging for the fence and fall short. If it was me, if this was my bank account, I would purchase 2 because it'd be cheaper now. We don't know what we'll need the money for in the future, what will come up, we don't know what repairs will come with what we currently have, if it can get worse.
Right, and you don't know what the price is, but you know it's not coming down.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I might, just because I've been watching the prices in a lot of different jurisdictions and they just keep going up. And it's not like 3% or 5%, it's 10% or waiting 6 months or waiting 12 months at one jurisdiction where it was a highly specialized vehicle, but it was going to be over 18 months. And I completely get why Chief is going conservative with his ask, but I mean, it would, in my mind, seeing what's happened and there's no end in sight, and there are likely going to be supply chain issues with chips and other things. It might be really prudent to get these 2 cars locked up and to know that we're set for the next 10 years or so and not have to worry about the impact, the outside impact of parts that may be manufactured in south of our border or assembled there or coming from across the Pacific Ocean. It just seems like there's a lot of potential risk. Nobody has a crystal ball. I certainly don't. But I remember a time when this number would have been 55, 60, and it wasn't that long ago. And he's getting a real good deal because the number I would expect is closer to 100. So all kudos to Chief for negotiating the deal he's doing and trying to get what he's getting. But boy, there's a lot of uncertainty around supply chain issues coming up, and that could cause prices to spike. And that's what we saw during the pandemic. And I don't anticipate another pandemic, but there are other market forces that are at play that could really impact the ability to get new vehicles at all.
Okay, is there any other discussion or questions?
I have a concern about, we're gonna be going to the voting public here for a whole new public safety building law, right? I'm just concerned about, what the general public is gonna think about you guys, spending a bunch of money now and then asking for more money then, and then, have you, and this is got nothing to do with that, but have you talked to Thad Nolan up at MERS about Astoria 4 doesn't have any mechanics?
I thought they have certified mechanic shop work.
No.
Gotcha.
Thad Nolan is the sharpest mechanic in Classic County.
Yeah, I've taken a couple of vehicles to in person.
Okay. Have you bothered to ask him to look at this vehicle? I mean, I'm not that I'm saying that, that we should limit this along for another 2 or 3 years.
I think 2962, the one's in the worst shape. I think that was taken to him for an AC issue and something else years ago. He didn't like the electrical job that was done to it, and he didn't want to do anything with it. For some reason, I want to say that.
I mean, you touch it, you own it.
He's
62 is just absolutely repaired. It's
yeah.
or replaced.
And with that, if anybody in the public is asking, I would say that I would have shown that I've done everything I can to make them last as long as I could with them. I rebuilt the drip rail because the light bar on top of Mark bolts in, it causes huge rust issues on the road. I rebuilt the drip rail in the public workshop. On that, we took the light bar off and we rebuilt with metal and Bondo, and then automotive paint. Rebuilt the whole drip rail up there and then got whole new seals put on there to potentially stop the leaking, and it didn't help on there. We have taken that vehicle in to get an alignment done, 2 different places, and it hasn't helped it. One was Schwab, one was Snooks Auto or Snooks. Tried to fix other multiple things with it, so it's been into multiple shops and different things and into the county with that. And we've done quite a bit to try to fix that as well with them.
I would suggest in the future that you, if you know Thad, then
Yeah.
he'll take in project.
Yeah.
You know, for his class.
And use them to teach his students.
Yeah, right. You know, I would use that resource.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor of the 170 for 2 vehicles, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Those abstaining? Okay. 4 to 1 abstain.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Next on the new business, anyone want to talk about that liquor license application? Or the special event? The Gerhard firefighter ball? Okay. We've already given them approval to have their ball. Shall we have a motion to approve the GVFD Association liquor license application for the annual firefighter ball?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All those who abstain? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
You must be playing your deaf side.
You are. All right. Anyone wishing to speak about the OLCC city liquor license renewals? This is under new business. I see no hands raised. All right, here's a list of liquor license renewals. If we do nothing, OLCC will take that as an affirmative and we'll go ahead and process. Does anyone wish to make comment, concerns?
I have a question.
Okay.
So the Drift Haven has a full liquor license, which means they can serve mixed drinks.
The liquor license would enable them to do that if they were able to have a restaurant. They are not able to have a restaurant, so they are able to do beer and wine at that location. And there's really no way for them to have a restaurant, so that is the protection that we have there.
It's not really, even though the license is full, it's not, that's not really what they
They
can
can
do.
perfect it, correct.
Thank you.
I see that your Heart Liquor Store's got 2 liquor licenses. Is that because of Trucky's beer and wine that he's selling out of there? I didn't think that you could sell beer and wine out of it. Or
Off-premise sales, off-premise sales,
a state liquor store.
2 different license numbers. I don't know.
I don't like he's using it as a market and then a liquor store.
Well, I mean, years ago, it used to be you couldn't sell beer and wine out of a state liquor store. Is that correct, Chief?
It used to be, however, if you go to see some liquor store, they actually sell beer and wine in there as well. So there's been some changes to that, didn't it?
That might be it. Might be beer, wine, and liquor.
Okay.
I have one more question. So, back to the Drift Haven, if they have an outdoor gathering, party, whatever, they can serve beer and wine out in their yard place?
If it has to do with the use of it as a hotel, then yes.
And who monitors that they're only serving beer and wine? How's that? Nobody?
OLCC.
Yeah, OLCC has.
Do they send a person to attend the party, or
Say again?
do they send a person to attend the party?
They have to give our firefighters ball.
They have come before and I think 1 year, it had to get shut down early, isn't that correct, sir?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying it was your fault, I'm just saying I keep her there.
Never know.
Sorry.
I doubt very seriously if the OLCC came and tested everybody that came through the entrance to the Gearhart Fireman's Ball, that you guys wouldn't have any customers. Because everybody's faced before they even get here.
Pre-game.
Yeah,
But they do tell us they come and they're just wearing regular clothes, they don't have anything stating I'm OLCC. Afterwards, they have to tell you they are, and we, almost every year they come and when they leave, I'm part of the OLCC, you guys are doing great. Yeah,
yeah. Well, after
after they make a lap.
After the number one assistant from the OLCC stood between Pessin and I and said, I can see 20 visibly intoxicated people just where I'm standing. And Pessin turned to him and said, "What, are you blind?" You know, that was, he showed up the following Wednesday when we had a business with him. Yeah, that's when he said we'd never ever get a liquor license.
Yeah. That's what we have to keep a logbook of the bar, and they have to write down everybody, and when you get cut off and everything, we have to have licensed servers.
You can only serve beer and wine.
Yes, sir. Okay,
Okay, so back to I just want, so the OLCC is the person who would monitor the drifting.
So it's a simple motion, do nothing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you, Paulina. We make a motion to appoint a budget officer. If you look under council options, number 1, if someone says that.
Make a motion that the city treasurer be designated as budget officer.
I second that.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
All right. Now, approve the budget calendar. And Justine's got it all laid out in it, and you can go back and look at it. The only thing I want to point out is May 13th is our first meeting, if I'm reading this right. Just make sure Klosh Group knows that.
April 5th.
April 15th.
Okay, well, May 13th
It's the
is
second.
the second one, but they like that Tuesday.
Yeah.
Just make sure they're not conflicted.
Thanks.
All right. Number 1 is a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget calendar.
All those in,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to new business, Gerhart Cleanup Day in honor of Earth Day, April 19th.
Great. I move we allow the city to hold cleanup day.
All those,
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 What was the discussion?
I didn't want any.
What do you want to discuss? We're here for you.
Well, I mean, do we know whether or not the garbage company is gonna work with us on this, or?
No,
Are we gonna get
Christie's
stuck?
been working really closely with them over the last couple of years. They've kind of taken the time to whether or not they're going to grant us. Ecology actually pays for part of this to do that, and it takes them some time to get through that process. We're getting ahead of it to make sure that we can make it for Earth Day. Last year, we did the same thing. They still came up and they still donated towards this. I gave it to a reasonable amount. Like last year, the city quoted portion of the donation went from around 18 to 2,500 due to exceeding the maximum tonnage. So we actually did pay a lot. Following the event, the actual invoice totaled around 1,900. So they donated to make up that difference. We figure that the event will be about the same, about 1,900, but it could be more. We're not so sure. The only other difference is that the Mechanic and Watershed Council would like to just have a little booth there to collect some soda cans to help fund their projects. And their projects are usually good for your park, so we throw them in there as well. But I'm not sure exactly what it's gonna cost, around 19, possibly up to 2,500.
Well, it sounds like if our tonnage is increasing, the public really likes this and is taking advantage of it.
That and the increased amount of people that are in our town, we're definitely busier these days, so that's just getting a little bit more expensive.
We can count the number of people that are in the town there, Peter. Take it back to Portland State.
Any data you can get me, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Council concerned. Paulina.
None.
Okay, Preston. Sharon.
No.
Dana.
No, sir.
I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, council.
Long meeting, we always start getting silly.
But,